Hello and welcome. Another week is here. It's week 15. It's time for KVK. Kyle versus KJ is back, ready for action. So, I'm your host, Raul Dowse, as you can see right there. And I'll introduce you to the experts that are going to keep you in the playoffs. Or if you're in the bye, going to get you that first win you need. So, as first off, Kyle, what's up?
What's going on, guys? It's Kyle. Happy to see that KJ is back this week. Just wanted to let everyone know that out of all of our four analysts here at the KVK show, I'm the only one that made the playoffs in our personal fantasy season. So make sure you listen to what I say and nothing else.
All right, that guy's got some selective words there. All right, so making a comeback this week, KJ, what's up?
What's up, guys? KJ here. I didn't even have to be here last week to beat Kyle, so make sure you don't listen to what he's telling you, and you're listening to what I'm telling you, because I'm keeping you in the playoffs, hunting that championship down.
All right, got some fine words there going on. It's week 15. Gotta have it. All right, and as always, our man in the field, weathering the storm for you. Chris, what's up?
Hey guys, Chris here. I just want to point out that in that league, Vicky, I'm really sorry that I knocked you out of the playoffs, even though I had no chance to be in there, giving Kyle that opportunity to get in. So I'm sorry.
That guy's a mean guy. Vicky, just smack him. As soon as you see this, just one quick one. Just for me. All right, so without further ado, it's week 15. It's time for the playoffs. Let's get started. You need a start and a sit. So we'll discuss who you should be starting or sitting. Without further ado, check out the lists. Got a lot of interesting starts and sits. Kyle's a little edgy this week. I see he wants to push the envelope. So without further ado, Kyle, who is your top start for the week?
So my top start of the week is basically because of the announcement that the Browns made earlier today that Johnny Manziel will be starting for the Browns. I don't think that he's going to have too big of a rapport with the wide receivers yet, and you always have young quarterbacks always looking for their safety blanket, which obviously in this case will be Jordan Cameron, who came back last week. Didn't look too terrible, got 4 catches for about 40 yards. I think that Johnny Manziel will be looking his way a ton, and Cincinnati's defense actually isn't that great against the tight end either. They're 22nd in fantasy against opposing tight ends. So I definitely think Jordan Cameron's going to have a nice day here.
All right, I hear you on that one. We'll see how safe Johnny Manziel likes to keep it, which 2 words that kind of don't go with his name. So, your sit?
My sit might be a little shocking here, and you're probably not sitting him if you do have him, unless you have a very nice backup quarterback. But it is the playoffs. This is a very important week. Tom Brady is going against Miami. Tom Brady never really plays well against Miami. I know it was way back in week 1. He only had 13 points against Miami. But if you look at the history, even past seasons, he hasn't had great days against Miami. Miami is 4th against the opposing quarterbacks in fantasy football as well. So I really think that this is more of a LeGarrette Blount game, who is in my starts this week as well. I think they're going to pound the ball a ton, give it to their other backs as well, and Tom Brady's not going to see a lot of action this week.
All right, that's definitely the riskiest start on that list among a lot of risky ones. So, welcoming back KJ. Who's your start and sit?
All right, so good to be back. I missed this last week. So this week my start is one of my rivals, a guy I like to talk a lot of trash about during the season. It's Eli Manning going against the Washington Redskins. It's a secondary we've talked trash about all season long. They're really bad against the pass, and Odell Beckham's a beast. So I think it's going to be a tough day for Rashad Jennings in the trenches. I think the passing game is what's going to give the Giants the W this week against the worst team in our division, the Redskins.
All right, and on the sit side.
So it's kind of funny. My sit kind of coordinates with what Kyle just talked about with him sitting Tom Brady. I know that sounds ballsy, but I'm going to go ahead and kind of side with him because I'm sitting Julian Edelman. The guy's been a PPR beast this year. He's obviously the number 1 target for Tom, even though Gronk is back. I just don't like his matchup with potentially Jonathan Grimes. I think in the slot it could be a really tough matchup for him. He could have a tough day. And I think this is going to end up being more of a Gronk and maybe running game, even though Miami's good against that. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game overall, not too much help for a fantasy team, if you know what I mean.
All right, I hear you on the Patriots sitting this week. So let's go on to Kyle. Looking at your list again, I see you're bringing somebody back from the dead. Sammy Watkins. Why so?
Well, there's a couple factors that come into play here with me starting Sammy Watkins against Green Bay. One is I think it's going to be a repeat of last week where the Bills are going to be down a little bit and they're going to have to throw. Sammy Watkins did get 7 catches for 130 yards last week against the Broncos on 12 targets. I think they'll be down again against the Packers. And if you watched the game Monday night, the Packers said that they game planned against Julio Jones, and he still caught passes for 250 yards. So if Sammy Watkins could even get half of that, and I think he will definitely be able to, he'll definitely have a nice game for you, and I would definitely start him this week.
Sounds like a plan. Let's see if he can get back to his old self. All right, and looking at KJ's list again, I'm sure a lot of Cowboys fans weren't too happy about the last game, so he's actually going to sit Witten this week. Why so, Cage?
I loved that last game. It was awesome. But in Philly, the reason I'm sitting Jason Witten is because our D-line has been one of the shining bright spots of our team this year, and I think I see him helping block for Tony Romo this week. Romo is an elusive guy. That O-line is awesome, but I think he's going to find that he's going to be struggling in the pocket, getting some pressure. So I don't think he's going to be going out on too many routes. And even when he does, the Eagle linebacker, Michael Kendricks, is very solid against tight ends. I don't see Witten having more than 4 or 5 points for you. And championship time, that's just not going to cut it.
Well, let's see if he can pull something off this week then.
No.
All right. So, Cage, checking out your list again. And I'm sure you had a nice look at Kyle's as well. Is there anybody sticking out to Kyle?
So, it's funny because Kyle kind of talked for Jordan Cameron. I'm going to talk against Jordan Cameron. So, for the same reason that he thinks he's going to have a good day, I think he's going to have a bad day. Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel is not a guy known to throw into his tight end. I know it's a different system. He's not playing in college anymore. But if you're going to give Johnny Manziel the start this week, I think he's going to be looking at Josh Gordon. I think he likes a big body receiver like he used to throw to Mike Evans at Texas A&M. So I think he's going to be looking downfield, probably making a lot of mistakes doing it, but I don't see him checking down to Jordan Cameron, and I don't trust Jordan Cameron getting hit in the head and potentially getting knocked out in the first quarter. So it's not time to start Jordan Cameron. Wait till 2015 to possibly start that dude again.
All right. And Kyle, your defense?
This guy is getting his first career start in the NFL. I don't think he's going to be game planned to be chucking the ball down the field to his big receiver. But, this isn't college. It's basically, I think, going to be more of a check down, Johnny run with the football, maybe some read option plays put into their playbook now, and maybe a couple tight end screens as well. So I think that Jordan Cameron will end up having more targets than Josh Gordon, who has looked out of shape the last couple of games as well.
I hear you on that. We'll see. Well, I'm not too sure about the Josh Gordon part, but I do see a lot of screens happening, a lot of safe screens happening for him. A little couple, QB runs himself as well. All right, so, Kyle, I'm sure you had a nice, savory look at KJ's list. Anybody sticks out to you?
Yes, and this one actually hits home from last week as well, personally to KJ. The fact that you're now deciding to sit a New York Giants running back. Let's start with last week first. KJ, can you quickly tell everyone who you started over Andre Williams at your running back position this past week?
So, yes, I started Dexter McCluster over Andre Williams this past week because, one, nobody would have predicted Rashad Jennings going out of the game. And two, I'm looking for the guy who's going to get volume. Bishop Sankey was getting touches taken away in favor of McCluster. I thought he was going to be looking at a screen touchdown. So, yeah, I went with McCluster. Knocked me out of the playoffs. It is what it is. But 2 weeks ago, Kyle was also the guy telling you that Andre Williams is the worst running back in the league. You've never seen more plays for negative yardage and all that nonsense. So don't change your tune now because you had one big game, right? I went with McCluster. I went with it, and I flubbed. It happens. It's fantasy football.
That is one that I also made in another league as well. So
I would also like to say on top of that, KJ, I always praise running backs and guaranteed touches. There is no such thing as guaranteed touches when it comes to Dexter McCluster. And the reports before the Giants game started was that Rashad Jennings was only going to get touches on third down. So if you were trying to get a playoff spot, KJ, you should have paid a little bit more attention to what was going on there. I would have went with the guaranteed touches that Andre Williams was getting over the very risky spot of Dexter McCluster. Back to this week, though, Rashad Jennings, I understand he is an iffy go again, but if he is going to play, did anyone watch how awful Tennessee looked against the Giants? I know that it is Tennessee, but I think that this week, even with Andre Williams having the big game, I mean, he's going to go back to his awful -3, -2 yards, so they might be forced to use Rashad Jennings a little bit more. So I would give Rashad Jennings a shot here if they say he can stay on the field.
we'll see if he can do it or not, but I don't see myself starting Andre Williams.
I'd like to defend myself on that one there, Robezel.
Go for it.
So the reason why I'm benching Rashad Jennings is that Washington has had a very stout run defense all year. And the last time Rashad Jennings played Washington, he was in the middle of having a bunch of good games, and he had 5.2 points. So Rashad Jennings is not going to be the focus of the Giants' attack. It's going to be through the air. So no. Rashad Jennings is going to be a terrible start this week. He's going to be boostless, and so is Andre Williams.
Oh, boy, Andre Williams, right my bench. Where he belongs.
Bastard.
Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and talk to our man in the field, Chris Gordon. What do the people have to say this week?
All right, guys, so the first question from the people, we have Johnny Manziel. Johnny, give me the money, Manziel versus the Bengals, or Mark Sanchez versus the Cowboys.
All right, let's hand this off to the Eagle. Cage, what do you got to say?
I realized that Mark Sanchez has looked very human this season. He's had ups, he's had downs, but the last time he played Dallas, he had a bunch of ups. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to start Sanchez over an unproven Johnny Manziel in a division game with a Cincy team that's trying to still stay in the playoffs. So, yeah, I'm going to stick with Sanchez.
I hear you on that one. He's at home. Kyle, your thoughts?
I would tend to agree with you here with Mark Sanchez. Obviously, he's got more weapons. He's played longer. He's more comfortable. But reports from Cincinnati's camp, unfortunately, Marvin Lewis, very dumb, he called Johnny Manziel a midget. So whenever something like this happens, you usually see the other player. That's just something to motivate him. I know a lot of people are doubting Johnny Manziel. I know a ton of people want to see him fail. I just have a weird feeling that this kid is going to put up a huge game fantasy-wise. He might run for 80 yards to 100 yards, get a touchdown there, and you never know. I think he might shock the world this week. He could fall flat on his face as well, but we'll see.
So are little people completely attacking Marvin Lewis now for his comment?
You might see that at the dog pound. You never know.
That's true. Anything can happen in Cleveland. All right, back to Chris.
All right, guys, the second question. And by the way, Ro mentioned before, out in the cold, getting these questions today really, really sucked. Anyway, running back, Daniel Herron versus the Texans, or Joik Bell versus the Vikings?
Screw Daniel Herron. All right, Kyle.
I'm staying with my love for Danny Herron. I know he was nowhere to be found last week, but Trent Richardson is really actually worse than Dan Herron. I I wouldn't say eventually, though, that I would start Heron over Joyke Bell just because Joyke Bell is basically the guy to go to now in Detroit. So I guess eventually I would go with Bell here because he's just getting the goal line carries. He's definitely, I would say he's dominating the snaps at running back there. So I would go with Joyke Bell just because of the more guaranteed touches there, like I was saying before.
I hear you on that one. Cage, Mr. Bell or Mr. Boom?
Initially, I wanted to kind of go Joyke Bell because I've kind of been riding him in a couple leagues. Finally, he's picking it up. I know just in general, the Lions' backfield has kind of been a disappointment this year, but something just tells me it's going to be a lot of Stafford to Calvin, Stafford to one of his weird tight ends kind of day. And I'm gonna go Dan Heron against Houston. I think they'll keep it on the ground a little bit this game. Sorry, Bezel, I love you. But yeah, I know Luck can throw it a bunch. He's been throwing a bunch of picks though, so maybe they want to scale it back a little bit, take a little pressure off him in terms of the gunslinging, and give Heron a couple of touches, see what the kid's really worth.
Yeah, we'll see if Stafford keeps it quiet or not, which I sort of doubt. All right, so let's move it along to our next segment, Sleepers. The segment everybody wants to hear about. Who's sleeping for Week 15, if that's even a thing? All right, so take a look at last week's list, and let's see how these guys fared. All right, so KJ, even sick, he comes back and pulls one off. Okay. All right, so let's go to the victor. Gage, who was your success and failure from last week?
I won. I have more points. Yay. So my happy start last week was Kyle Orton. I've recommended Kyle Orton on several occasions because he continues to be owned in not that many leagues, but he's putting up decent numbers. And in a game that I thought would be a shootout, he put up like 30 points. So Kyle Orton is definitely the main dude, I'm going to say, is the reason why my team won last week. Outside of John Stewart having a good game for both Kyle and myself.
All right, and who was your failure?
So it's the holiday season, and Rudolph the Red Zone Reindeer gave me a big lump of coal. He gave me 0.9 points. So he was definitely the worst contributor on my team. I really wish it'd been 2 weeks ago when he got like 8 points, but it is what it is. He sucked for me, and hopefully he didn't suck for anybody else out there watching this.
All right, so let's go to the other side of the spectrum. Kyle, who at least came through for you this week?
All right, so as KJ already stated, Jonathan Stewart, we both said last week he was going to be basically the man now in Carolina with D'Angelo Williams being out. He's been running the ball very well lately. I think he's still over about 6 or 7 yards per carry over his last 3 games. He had about 150 yards and a touchdown this week, so I think you'll see plenty more of him now, especially with the car accident that just happened to Cam Newton. He might be out for a week or so you would see plenty more of running dosage for Jonathan Stewart. Also, just wanted to point out, Sean Hill did have a pretty decent game as well, 2 touchdowns over 200 yards. And 21 points in standard fantasy leagues. Then we go to our fantasy fail for me for the week. Now, I think I might have had an error and had said that I had the Vikings defense, but I'm looking at my paper from last week. I had the Saints defense, which was any defense that was going against Carolina was a nice hot topic usually, but something happened to Cam Newton last week, and they absolutely steamrolled the Saints. In standard ESPN scoring, they have -7 last week, so pretty brutal day for the Saints defense altogether, as now they are the lowest scoring team in fantasy football.
That was quite the weirdest show out by Cam Newton.
I won by even more then. Yeah, I thought he picked Minnesota too. Yeah.
All right, so let's see
Sorry.
if KJ can repeat or not. So
I'm really
let's take a look at this week's sleepers. Check them out. All right, got a nice little matchup this week. So, without further ado, Kyle, who's your favorite sleeper of Week 15.
So my favorite sleeper this week is a guy that will be opposite of Darrell Revis, or in a sense, he won't be getting covered by Darrell Revis, should I say. I think that Revis will be on Mike Wallace, and if you watched last week, Revis just absolutely shut down Keenan Allen. He had 2 catches for 3 yards. Just a brutal day for Keenan Allen. I think Jarvis Landry will draw an assignment of somebody else, maybe Brandon Browner, who is just getting flagged just about every other play for the Patriots. And I think that Revis will take away the deep threat of Wallace, so that Tannehill will have to look Landry's way. And he's definitely been getting more and more confident with Tannehill and Landry together. So I would definitely start Landry, even over Mike Wallace this week.
Oh, yeah. Jarvis Landry definitely been coming through these past few weeks. All right, so over to the victor from last week. Gage, who's your top sleeper for Week 15?
So one of my top sleepers is a name that most people know, but I did have to check his own percentage in Yahoo. He was at 48%, so that makes him available for me in the sleeper pool. I'm going with CJ2K because I'm a fan of the revenge game. He's going against his old team in Tennessee that basically shipped him out the door, and he landed with the New York Jets. So he's been running with a little bit more pep in his step lately. I think against this game, Rex is going to be like, hey, you want to run against your old team? You want to run up the stat sheet? Why not? Because Rex loves to ground and pound. So I think Chris Johnson could be looking at good 15 touches this week. Against his former team, he's going to want to show up. So I like him a lot as a sleeper this week.
All right, let's see if Rex Ryan wants to save his job or not. So, Gage, while we're talking to you, so who in Kyle's list is just not going to work out for him?
I can't understand why anybody would even look so far as to start Jake Locker this week. I get it. He's playing against the Jets, but that's the same reason I started Rudolph last week, was because he was one against the Jets and didn't pan out. I don't see Locker panning out. Kendall Wright, not 100%. Is he even going to play? Who knows? It's his favorite target. Delaney Walker is pretty much the only guy he's going to be able to throw to. I don't see where his production is going to come from. I think if Delaney Walker has 150 yards, Jake Locker is going to have 160 yards for the day and maybe a touchdown. So, yeah, don't start Jake Locker. There's plenty of options like Kyle Orton.
Oh, boy. Okay, and Kyle. Well, we're talking about Kyle. Your thoughts on that one?
Don't forget, KJ, he does have Dexter McCluster to look towards.
Ooh, rim shot.
Here's the thing about Jake Locker. He has 3 games to audition to the NFL, whether or not he is a worthy quarterback for someone, because he's not returning to the Titans next year. He gets his first chance against one of the worst secondaries in the league. Kendall Wright did participate in practice, so he might be playing. And Nate Washington isn't a bum, so he will be starting on the other side of Kendall Wright. Delaney Walker, a nice safety blanket there, and Bishop Sankey will at least give him some balance. And don't forget, Jake Locker can run the ball as well. He does have a little bit of that in him, so he always will get you a couple nice points in the running game.
He can't run against this.
This guy is owned in 3% of leagues. This is why it's a sleeper and not a guy that's owned in almost 50% of leagues. And I just happen to be a fantasy dud, which, let's just go straight into my sleeping dud of the week for KJ's team, Chris Johnson. It's pretty bad when you go from that guy that was supposed to be your fantasy star. Now he was just a fantasy dud. Now he's just a sleeper dud. I don't think he's even going to see the field more than 15 snaps. I think it's a Chris Ivory game, not a Chris Johnson game. Sorry, there's no revenge here for me. I think that if he does happen to get in, I just picture him fumbling or getting 1 carry for 2 yards, just like he always did for Tennessee in the last 3 years. So if you have Chris Johnson and you want to move on to the next round of the playoffs, keep him on a nice little spot on your bench or possibly send him to the waiver wire.
All right, KJ, your thoughts on CJ 12K?
Chris Johnson, let me remind you, has had 1,000 yards in pretty much all of his NFL seasons, okay? It's overlooked because, yeah, he was once CJ2K. And you know what? CJ1K isn't that bad a thing to be. So, yeah, I do think that the revenge factor will play a part. So, yeah, Chris Johnson is still a sleeper for me. Thank you, Kyle.
KJ stays, still has the K.
He does.
All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and talk to our Man of the People, our viewer segment. This is the chance for you to voice your needs. Help us, help you. Chris Gordon, what's up?
All right, guys. So yes, as Rose said, help us, help you, because that's what this is all about. We just want to help you get further in fantasy football, get to the playoffs, and win. So the first question, two questions actually, but they're both concern questions. Should I worry? Should I worry about these two players? So the first one we'll go to is Cam Newton. Should I worry? If I'm a Cam Newton owner, this is the playoffs. He just got into a car accident. Now, we've heard mixed reports, some saying that he's not that hurt, and there was a picture of him smiling, which didn't look very pleasant. And then there's some reports saying he messed up his back. I think he has the same injury that Tony Romo had that caused him to miss a game. So should I worry?
All right, let's go to a Cam Newton owner. Kyle.
This one hurts me personally because I was about ready to ride or die with Cam Newton all the way through the playoffs. Got his highest game of the year last week to get me in. And, of course, now the fantasy gods have striked upon me, and Cam Newton has gotten into a car accident. But here's the deal. I think that it sounds like he's only going to miss 1 week, so if you can survive that, you'll be all right. Maybe you pick up a Kyle Orton. Maybe you don't. I think you should probably pick up Jake Locker or Johnny Manziel before you pick him up. Yeah, I would definitely be worried about Cam Newton because it's such a late part of the season. You're in the playoffs. I would definitely make sure you pick somebody up tomorrow, which is the waiver wire period, and make sure you pick up whoever you can right away so that you don't lose out.
Are you on that? He would be a nice little backup if he does come back 100% and perform like he did in New Orleans. So we'll see. Gage, thoughts?
So yeah, should you worry about Cam Newton? Absolutely. You should have worried about him after week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It took him 14 weeks to have a game over 30 points. So yes, Cam Newton has not looked like Superman this year, and after this car accident, he will not look like Superman this week. So you should have somebody better to start than Cam Newton week in and week out if you've gotten this far so far. So yeah, don't rely on him. You haven't been able to most of the season, so don't start now.
We'll see if he can pull something off.
No.
Back to Chris.
All right, the second one. And this is a very, very rare question. Should I worry about Peyton Manning? So I would love if everyone that watches this video that Peyton Manning screwed you over in the first round of the playoffs last week, if you lost because he got you 4 points, let us know. We want to tally that up. But anyway, 4 points. Will it happen again? Is this run game the new Denver Broncos? Is it something that owners have to worry about seeing more than just 1 week?
Peyton Manning. Okay. Gage, what do you think about Peyton?
So Peyton Manning is about 106 years old, so obviously he's past his prime. He is no longer a good fantasy quarterback. No, of course he's a great fantasy quarterback. Are you kidding me? No, you're starting Peyton Manning week in and week out. Yes, he had one dud. Last year, he had a dud in Week 14 against the San Diego Chargers and knocked me out of the playoffs. So, yeah, screw you, Peyton. Week 14 is like your kryptonite. I hate it. But luckily, the league that I'm in the playoffs and I have Peyton Manning, I had a first-round bye. So that stinker you put up didn't cost me this year. Peyton Manning's good to start whenever. Yeah, okay, sure, he's going to have his one bad week. But at the end of the day, he's the one that gets you in the playoffs. So don't worry about it. But don't suck again.
Are you worried about the QB god?
Okay. So this one bothers me even more personally than any other topic we've talked about. Obviously, I'm a Broncos fan. If you have Peyton Manning, you're obviously starting him. But I am here to say I would be completely worried if I were you. This isn't just going back to last week, 2 weeks ago as well. This guy has looked completely average the last 2 weeks. If you look at the game plan that they've had for this guy, maybe it's because of the cold weather, but the game plan has been run, and if it's 3rd and short, throw a short slant route to Emmanuel Sanders. Did you see Demaryius Thomas's numbers last week? It's because they're not trying anything deep. It's all slant routes to Emmanuel Sanders. It's all short routes. It's all dink and dunks to the running backs. It really seems like Manning has lost some of his arm strength or whatever it is. It's terrifying me as a Broncos fan because if this is what's happening, we have no chance in the playoffs, and you have no chance in your fantasy football playoffs if you're still in it now that he screwed you last week. So, sorry.
All right, Kyle with some strong words for Mr. Peyton Manning. Back to Chris.
All right, guys, that's all the questions I have for today. Thank you for everyone that took the time to post these. We really appreciate it. Please find us on Twitter at Ultimate Plan B. We're on Facebook and Instagram, The Ultimate Plan B. The YouTube links, everything's there. So that's all we have for today.
All right, and final words from Kyle.
Let's just go back a couple weeks ago when we first started this, way back in the day. I would just like to tell everyone, for your first or second week of the playoffs, start your damn Bills. Kyle Orton, Sammy Watkins, they're going to bring you all the way to the championship.
All right, Kyle has a running joke going on here. Okay, Gage, final words.
It's good to be back. I missed this last week. I wish you all the best of luck. I hope you wish me the same. It's been a rough season for all of us. So, yeah, suck it up, get ready for next year. Start thinking about next year.
And speaking of next year, hopefully next week we'll probably have a nice little keeper segment for you guys. So keep an eye out for that. We'll see what happens. All right, so a lot going on with UPB. Keep checking out for us. Keep checking out for you. See ya.
Deuces.